We already have finished the first introspection of attention. Now we're dealing with the second one, which is investigation and interpretation of subjective experiences by introspection with the wisdom of the Dharma. Well, let's go on to the second one, and then we go into the third one. I hope that we can finish the 7 today. We don't want to linger on for too long. So the second step is investigation and interpretation of the Dharma. When we do introspection, we begin to understand that emotions come with the way we interpret our subjective experiences. What does that mean? What does that mean? What do you mean by emotions come from our interpretation of subjective experiences? Our eyes see, for example, the opposite sex. You think that opposite sex is really appealing, really sexy, really handsome or good looking. You are using your subjective experiences to interpret it. Because to other people, that particular person may not be attractive at all. It's because your subjective experiences interpreted in such a way. Then all of a sudden your sensuous desire comes out because you interpret it using your subjective experiences. And you look at a person, when your eyes look at a person, you stigmatize that person. Here, that guy, I think he's a cunning man. You don't know him, but you just, from your subjective experiences, you think there's a cunning man, so I'm not going to like him. I dislike him. So you're actually putting your own interpretation to subjective experiences, and then if we interpret it in the right way, our mind will become, and vice versa. How do we interpret it in the right way? We say, no, we shouldn't stigmatize people. We shouldn't label people. We shouldn't use subjective experiences to judge people. Say, when somebody yells at me, the sound goes through my ears. I dislike it, I hate it. I'm using my subjective experiences to interpret the sound. That's the sound of insult. But then if I use the right way to interpret it, I say, yes, that may be the sound of insult, but I'm not going to attach to it. I'm going to let go of it. I'm not going to be affected by what you said, by what you cursed. I'm not going to be affected. Then you are interpreting it in the right way. You're not attaching to it. So if we interpret in the right way, using the right introspection, the introspection of letting go, the introspection of no subjective experiences, you just treat it as something that you don't want to attach it to, then your mind will be calm. If you don't do it that way, your mind will not be calm. If we interpret our experiences with wisdom, we know the causality of our subjective experiences and would not allow emotions to arise and stay. What do you mean by if we interpret our experiences with wisdom? We call it pana in the Pali language, and we call it prajna in the Sanskrit language. And then you do not allow the emotions to arise and stay. For example, a thought of depression comes up. It affects my hormones. I feel sad. I feel angry. I feel jealous. I don't know what you feel. Depression is a mixture of feelings. Then you say, oh no, I'm going to interpret it with wisdom. I'm going to separate myself from it without attaching to the emotion and feeling, although I still have the emotional feeling because it affects my physical body. I will be affected by it. I will be saddened by it. I will feel sad. I will feel, I have certain feelings. But I know that's not a good feeling. I'm going to somehow distance myself from it, separate myself from it, and look at it. I can't get away with it. You can easily let go. Extremely difficult to let go. How to let go? Letting go is first of all to separate yourself from the emotion and watch it. You're not away from the emotion. You are with it. You must not hate it. You must not hate your depression. Don't add hatred on emotion. If you add hatred on emotion, you're adding on the emotion with a momentum of another emotion. You think that will help? You think you can use violence against violence? You cannot use violence against violence. You can only use tender loving care on violence. You can only use compassion on violence. Next, then we use the Buddhist teaching, the Buddhist concept to introspect and interpret the circumstances the right way, free of craving and attachment, gaining free control of the citta, the emotional mind. The citta, the emotional mind. What is the citta? Citta, it's according to Theravada school, citta is the emotional mind. If we fit that into the Mahayana, that's the seventh consciousness, the manas. More is the same as citta, manas, the manas consciousness, which is the seventh consciousness. With that realization, now the mind is confident. Why is the mind confident? Because you're going through a series of training for many, many days to distance yourself and watch it. That means you are putting a vacuum in between the emotion and yourself. You're watching it. You just befriend with it. Don't hate it. And try to get familiar with it. And at the same time, you put some silence in your mind, stillness in your mind, and go through it. Go through the storm. If the storm comes, you think you can throw away the storm? You cannot throw away any storm, right? You can only adjust your mind to accept the storm. That's why we say snowstorm, rainstorm, all kinds of storm. You cannot get away from it, but you accept the storm with a stillness of mind. You don't fight the storm. Can you fight a storm? Impossible. You can only accept the storm with a stillness of mind and go through it. And then, when you're familiar with it, as I always said, you will be coming out smelling like roses at the end because you get used to it. The storm is not storm anymore. Maybe at some times I love the storm. It is a blessing that I have that storm because the storm gives me the feeling of overcoming, of going through it, going through the experiences. So with that realization, now the mind is more confident because you've gone through the training. Nobody can train it. You train yourself, not God. God cannot train you, but you train yourself. Don't look for an external God. That God is in you. When you are in anger, that God has turned into a demon. When that God has tender, loving compassion, that God has turned into what you call God, what they call a Buddha, and what they call a Deva, whatever you call it. The words doesn't really matter. It's the essence that counts. Don't stigmatize religion. Don't stigmatize words. So now the mind is confident. Are you confident? The mind is more confident. With this confidence, our mind is calm and relaxed. Dhamma Vichaya means we know how to investigate and interpret the right concept as expounded by the Buddha. You have learned all these concepts. You already have scooped up some unpolluted water from the ocean, and now you zip and get the taste. You don't have to drink up the whole ocean of the Buddhist teaching. You scoop up, and then you know, oh, this is the concept of emptiness, sunyata. This is the concept of causality. This is the concept of reincarnation. This is the concept of the four contemplations or introspections. So many concepts. But when you learn these concepts, you know how to apply this concept to your experiences. That's what we mean by apply Buddhism. Buddhism has to be applied to daily life. Buddhism is not just talking about it with words. Talking about it with words is the prajna of language, not the prajna of introspection. The third one, strengthening of the mano with the right efforts. The third step in the 7 steps to awakening, when we are determined to practice introspection in the right way with prana, the mano is gaining momentum, right efforts and confidence to practice. If you're going through this practice, then the mental manager in you, the mano, is always gaining momentum. That's the reason why. That's the reason why not every sitting of meditation is successful. It's satisfactory to what you want to achieve. But remember, every sitting, if you do it properly, is gaining the momentum, not sleeping. If in every meditation you're like this, you're not gaining any momentum. You're not gaining the momentum of it. You have to, every sitting of meditation, you say, I want to train myself, adding on to the practice. In other words, you have to do it, you have to practice it, the right introspection with what? With determination. Everything you do, you must do it with determination. If you're not determined to do it, you will not be successful. If you are wishy-washy, or if you are just doing it, what we call desultorily, without really having momentum in it, you'll never be successful. Only for those who pick up the momentum to do anything and bring it to success, and bring it to perfection, will be those who become successful. So it's very important that a practitioner of Buddhism must be a person who is determined to do it. And the first determination is to be a monk or to be a nun. That's the first determination. Can you? I cannot, because I have a family. I love my wife, I love my husband, I love my estate, I love my house, I love all the materialistic style of life. Yeah, you have determination, but it's not strong enough. You have to burn your bridges. You have to burn your bridges, you'll never return. You go on to that, you're striving towards that destination. 3, number 4 now, contentment of our mano. When the mano is strengthened and the chitta is under control, the mano and the chitta start to stop pulling against each other in a tug of war. Then the mano gains control and becomes calm and peaceful. Happiness arises. If you are determined to do it, if you apply yourself to do it, you practice enough to do it, then the chitta, or the manas consciousness, and the mano, used to be the chitta is in control of the mano. Your emotional mind is always in control of your rational mind. But if you practice so much that maybe it's more or less they are only at the tug of war, and then slowly, if you practice so much, the mano is in control in the tug of war, gaining control. When the mano is gaining control, you're not as emotional anymore. Happiness arises. You have a little bit of happiness arises in you. But before the happiness arises, actually, number 4 and number 5 can be prioritized in a different way. We can say, number 5, body and mind relaxation comes first, and then we have the cognitive contentment. But some people put 4 as 5 and 5 as 4. But I think it's better I would say body and mind relaxation comes first, and then you have the mental contentment. When your mano is under control, is controlling the chitta, then all of a sudden you're not emotional anymore. When you're not emotional, your hormones is more or less in equilibrium. When your amygdala is working in an adverse way, you are excreting emotional hormones. But if you relax, if your emotional mind and your rational mind is more or less level, or with the rational mind more or less controlling the emotional mind, then your whole body becomes relaxed because you're not emotional anymore. When you're not emotional, your body is relaxing and the mind becomes peaceful and tranquil. Then the practitioner experiences a kind of spiritual comfort that he has never experienced before, and that's what we call the real happiness comes. 6, mental equilibrium. In the Pali language is Samathi. Samathi comes. Samui Ting Samathi. When such happiness arises, the mano and the chitta are harmonious with each other and come to a peaceful equilibrium. Then it becomes a very peaceful mental equilibrium. And then, when you have mental equilibrium, that means no more, the emotional mind is more or less, no more emotions come out, less and less emotions come out. Then you're ready to enter into what? You're ready to enter into jhana. You're ready to enter into, in the Mahayana language, you're ready to enter into a dhyana. At this stage of the mental equilibrium, the practitioner is ready to enter the first jhana. Talking about the first jhana, first of all, you have to know what a jhana is. How do you arrive at jhana? That's a very high level. Some people meditate for hundreds of years, they don't have the first jhana. Some people meditate for maybe one life, they have jhana, first jhana. And getting into the first jhana does not mean that you stay in there. It's a state of mind. What's the feeling like? What's the sensation like to be the first jhana? Then you have to understand what Samathi is all about. Remember, there are 3 levels: Kamadhatu, Rupadhatu, and Arubadhatu. We are in Kamadhatu. We're not in Rupadhatu, we're not in Arubadhatu. Kamadhatu Samathi is the lowest Samathi in Kamadhatu. And then, as you practice more and more and more, you are going to Anagamiya Samathi. You are ready to go into the first jhana, but you are not in Rupadhatu yet. And then if you practice more and more and more, then you go to the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, and fourth jhana. So if you go more and more and more, you're getting out from Rupadhatu Samathi. You're going to Arubadhatu Samathi. Then you go to the state of endlessness of space. Because when you are in the fourth jhana, your thought is like it's empty space. Every thought is embracing nothing in the thought. It's an unlimited space, immeasurable space. But then after a while you say, the thought of space is bothering me. I'm already very happy with the fourth jhana. But the concept, the sensation of unending, immeasurable space is bothering me now. I want to get rid of that space concept. Then you say, the reason why I have this space concept is because I still have the thought. I still have that mind. I still have that thought. I want to get rid of that thought. The thought of unlimited space, empty space is bothering me. The thought of a thought coming up is bothering me. So I want to have no thought. So you get into the state of nothingness. But then nothingness is still a thought. I want to get rid of nothingness because it's bothering me. Then I go to what? The state of neither perception nor no perception. That is the highest state in the state of Arubadhatu. So these are all the levels. Don't worry about it. You're not at the bottom yet. You're not even touching there yet. In order to have Kamadhatu Samathi, you need to have, then you would do what? then you will have inquiry, inference, comfort, and mental contentment. That means, what is inquiry? You start to meditate. You start to, I want to learn meditation. I want to learn the Buddhist concepts. I want to inquire about the Buddhist concept. I want to investigate. I want to interpret. I want to learn all this. It takes many, many, many years for the inquiry, for the inquiry of how to achieve the enlightenment. And then after the inquiry, then you get into inference. In other words, you are drawing conclusions as to how to do it. We call it vitakka. So inquiry, inference are very basic level. That's the time when you're learning Buddhism, learning the Buddhist teaching. And how long would it take inquiry, how long it would take in inference in order to complete inquiry, to complete inference? There's no end to it. It depends on the level. How long would it take inquiry? 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 100 years, 50 years, 20 years? It's an accumulation of all the wisdom to do this inquiry. But you already have started the inquiry. Have you started the inquiry? Maybe some of you have. But there are many people out there who don't even care about this. What they care about is fame, reputation, family, eating, playing, I don't know. What are everybody doing? They're not striving towards the spiritual enlightenment. They haven't really started the inquiry. Have you started your inquiry? If you have started, that means you have begun. This is the beginning. Have you started? Or after starting the inquiry, have you made inferences, drawing conclusions? This is what I would do. This is how I would determine. This is how I practice. This is how I determine all that. And then if you have completely mastered or spent a lot of time on inquiry and inferences, you may arrive at comfort, sukha, a body relaxation that attaches to the mind's contentment. In other words, you are at a level of cognitive contentment and body relaxation. And then if you have that means you have achieved Kamadhatu Samathi. By then, you're already free from all these sensuous pursuit for sensuous pleasures. Have you got inquiry? Have you got inferences? Have you got comfort and mental contentment? Yes, maybe for a minute, for 2 minutes, for 3 minutes. But it has to be as long as possible. Maybe for the 2 minutes, you may have Kamadhatu Samathi. If you have these 5 elements, 5 meditative elements, the 5 meditative elements, they are all at different levels. If you're beginning to have some feeling of these 5 levels, you are prepared, you are having Anagamya Samadhi. I think this is in the Sanskrit language. And then if you go to the first jhana, so we will continue to explain what is inquiry, what is inference, what is comfort, what is content, what is mental equilibrium, the 5 meditative elements. So these 5 meditation elements are used to measure your level of meditation, your level of samadhi. But we'll talk about it next time. And then we'll talk about the first jhana. I haven't really, this is something that is very difficult to explain it. We need a lot of time to explain it, but it is very important that you should know, because when people try to study the Eightfold Path, they just read the words and they thought they understand them.